What is up, guys? Today we're going to be checking out the Moto G8 Power. I've had this phone for around 6 months now, so thought I'd do an updated video. And yeah, so this phone is pretty popular. Motorola has been very popular in this budget, smartphone space since the original Moto G. And they've been doing a really good job of keeping things very simple and giving people the essential things that they want with budget phones, which is good performance, pretty good cameras, and also excellent battery life with the power lineup. So the G8 Power is around now 150 to 160 on Amazon. I'll put the links down below, but it came down in price and it's definitely a very good phone for that price point. I still think so. You have a plastic design on here, and it's pretty nice. It gets a lot of fingerprints, but it's still a pretty nice design. You have a little sort of textured design on here, so I've always kind of liked the way this phone looks. You also have your fingerprint scanner, your, I believe, quad camera setup, and we also have a pretty good weight to it as well because you have such a beefy battery in this one. You do have a textured power button on the side with your volume rockers, and this phone actually has stereo speakers, which we will get into. USB Type-C in the headphone jack is up top. So the Moto G8 actually has a pretty good display. It's actually a 1080p display. It's a 6.4 inch display. You got the little punch hole on the left hand side. It also is $399 for the PPI. I have no issues with this display. It's very colorful as well. It gets pretty bright outdoors. Again, zero issues with the display here. It's pretty sharp as well with that almost 400 for the PPI. So again, no issues, and it's always nice to have the punch hole on this phone because it does give off a much more immersive experience when you're gaming, or if you're watching videos. It's definitely a step up from having a notch. So for the display department, no, it's not an OLED, but I think most people at this price point, they don't really care. They just want it to look nice, and again, the punch hole is a nice addition as well. So the best thing about this phone is it actually comes with Android 10. It is upgradable to Android 11, so this phone will get Android 11. Mine does not have it yet, but I believe Motorola did announce that. And also, Android 10 has been very smooth on here. 6 months later, it is still running very smoothly. So that is the best thing about these phones, is that there's no heavy skin on here, so you rarely get hiccups and stuff like that. As you can see, it's just really basic Android. There's not a lot of customization stuff that you can do here. But I think most people, again, they just want their phone to work fast, and this phone definitely does that here. We have our Google Now page, and we go to the toggles. Again, you'll see not a whole bunch of stuff. You have Moto audio on here, which is pretty nice. You can mess with the equalization settings and stuff like that. They have a nice UI for it, and yeah, as you can see, it's just very basic, man. It's not a lot of stuff here. So you do have your dark mode on here as well, which is really nice. So that always comes in handy at night, so you don't have bright white UI shining in your face. But overall, the UI has been extremely smooth, whether you're multitasking or whatever. This phone is always pretty snappy, which is something that I just really love. So no issues here with that. You have the Snapdragon 665 and the Adreno 610. This phone has micro SD support with 4 gigs of RAM on here. So overall, it's a pretty powerful phone. When you're gaming on this phone, you will be able to game a little bit. Of course, you won't be able to max everything out. So games like Call of Duty Mobile and PUBG all work. Fortnite, I believe, is not compatible with this phone, but as you can see, we're on high frame rates, high. We can even go to very high on here as well. So like I said, you can do gaming on here. Again, you won't be able to play Fortnite, and of course you can't max everything out on PUBG, but this is a pretty good phone for gaming. I have no issues, and like I said, the punch hole is a really nice addition because it doesn't get in the way that bad as a notch does. And the display is really nice. It's 1080p. So yeah, no issues. This phone really doesn't get hot when gaming at all either, which is something that I really like, even though it's a plastic phone. Most plastic phones usually get pretty hot, but this one, it stays relatively cool. Now again, you have stereo speakers on here, one right here and of course one at the bottom. So even if you block the one at the bottom, you still get some pretty nice sound from the front facing one. So overall, I really like the addition of stereo speakers. Pretty much any stereo speaker, I don't care what it is always a nice addition on a smartphone. Much better than just having a single firing speaker, because it's so easy to block a bottom firing speaker. So definitely a win in the sound department. Very loud, crisp, and clear speakers here. And also the gestures on this phone are really smooth. This phone has gotten a good amount of updates. It was not slow by any means, but Motorola has been pushing at least software updates or security patches with this phone, which is really nice. And I noticed that the gestures weren't laggy, but they kind of like, I don't know if they tweaked it or whatever, but it's definitely smoother than when I first got it. So that's one thing that I've noticed. And like I said, everything just super smooth here. And again, you saw the settings reopen, stuff like that. So that 4 gigs of RAM, you'll see that working. It's not gonna be like, you know, 6 gigs. Apps will refresh. That's still open. But yeah, so that's one thing that I noticed. But yeah, just a really smooth experience with this phone. That's one of the things that have always impressed me. Let's go over some additional features with this phone. So you do have the physical fingerprint scanner. It is on the back and it works very fast. No issues with this guy. And I like the placement. It's not too far up, not too below. It's kind of in a really good spot. So no issues there with that. As you can see, it works very fast. You also have face unlock on this guy as well, so you will be able to unlock this phone if you don't want to use that method, which is really nice. And this phone also does not have NFC, so that is one thing. So do note that if you're somebody that like to do a lot of mobile payments, do know that this phone is not going to have that feature. So you do have. Alright, so let's talk about the cameras. You get a quad camera setup on here, a 16 megapixel standard, 8 megapixel telephoto, 8 megapixel ultra wide, a 2 megapixel macro, and 4K video on here, as was a 16 megapixel selfie that shoots 1080p. Overall, I don't have any problems with the G8 Power's cameras. I think they do a pretty good job for this price point in terms of color, depth of field. Sometimes it can be a hit and miss with dynamic range, but overall it does a pretty solid job. Again, I'm not going to nitpick because of the price point, and I think it definitely does a really good job with, you know, just detail and taking, you know, the shots I think most people take and will be fine with. You're not going to be putting this in a whole bunch of like technical situations and stuff. It's really just a point and shoot, and I think it does a really good job at that. I actually prefer the G8 Power's cameras over the newer G9 Plus, if you guys remember that. So overall, I don't have any issues. I think color is solid on here as well. The selfie camera is decent. Sometimes white balance can be a little bit off, but overall no problems. And the same for video, pretty good video as well if you're in good lighting. So overall, if you're outdoors or in just decent lighting, this will definitely do a good job. Alright, so one of the best things about this phone is the 5000 milliamp battery with 18 watt fast charging. Having stock Android on here basically with this, so it just gives you a ton of juice. So this phone is really hard to kill in a day. I've never been able to kill it in a day. Even if you're like a gamer, you play games a little bit more than most people on your phone, then this is still a really great phone for that. And I also forgot to mention the Moto app, but I've done it so many times, but I will show you guys for you guys who haven't seen it. Basically, it's just a bunch of little actions that you can do, like the 3-finger screenshot. You also have this flashlight thing right here. If I shake the phone, it's been on here for years, and they've been adding to it. And flip for DMD. It's just basically a bunch of little shortcuts you can do with your phone. And they added a new addition, the game time. It's basically the tools for gaming and stuff like that. You can do little stuff while you're in games. And you also have your peak display on here, attentive display, all the stuff that we've been been covering for years, just in case somebody wanted to see that. But yeah, back to battery life, still really good. My only like nitpick with the battery life on here, not battery life, but the 18-watt fast charging is a little bit slow compared to some phones, because I think some phones now at least have like 25 to 30 watts, and you really start to notice the difference with charge time here. So that's the only thing, but that's really just, it's a nitpick. It's fine. But yeah, so what do you guys think of the G8? Let me know, and I will catch you guys in the next one.